Start recording. All right. Today we are going to learn about Datapump, right? So Datapump is another type of backup which can be used to um, to back up the data which we have in the database. So here, what kind of scenarios will this backup be helpful? Say just in case somebody accidentally deleted a table, okay, and you want to just restore one table. So in that case, you can use data pump. Can we use rman in that case? No, because rman lowest level of possibility is table space level. So here, if you remember this diagram which we had earlier, so this is outer box is like a table space. Then we have data file. In data file, we have the data about the tables. So export can get you information until this table level, but your RMN will stop at the table space level. So you cannot get anything deeper than that one. So generally in companies, what they do is they set up RMN backups also to run uh, every day, and data pump backup also to run probably weekly once or every day also, depending on uh, how much of depending on what would be the necessity for that particular kind of application. If application is doing something at the table level most of the time, like updating tables, dropping tables and everything, then it's easy to have an export backup handy, so that by mistake if a table gets deleted by somebody else, then we have a backup for that one. Right. So data pump has two parts in it. One is called as a data pump export. Export means grabbing all the data from the database and putting in one file. Second one is import. That file which you created during export, you read that file and you bring back the data. So easy. Data pump export, data pump import. Altogether, this is called as data pump. In data pump, we have one is called as export, and other one is called as import. Export. What exactly we use is, there is a utility which is called as expdp, right? This utility exists in the Oracle database. So where does this exist? So all some problem, okay. So all these utilities which we are talking about, which we just started talking from today, there is a location called as, in the Oracle home, there is a location called as a bin. In bin, all this whatever you see, right, whatever you see in green, those are all the utilities which are available in your database, right? For us, we are talking about export. So this is expdp is the one of the utility which we'll be using, and to import we will be using impdp, which is this one. So earlier, before expdp and impdp was created, there was a command line utility called as imp for import, exp for export. So those are not used, but still Oracle left it there, just left it there because expdp, they made it simpler, but internally it uses exp, few of the functionalities from exp. Again, one more utility which I show is rman. Rman will be seeing in the next class. So this one, and to create a database, this utility is behind the scenes when we do that options, right, from the GUI terminal. So dbca is used, database creation assistant. Further on, we'll see how to upgrade the database. In that, we'll be using the DBUA, database upgrade assistant. So all these the green parts, green files which you're seeing, everything has a purpose for it. All right, when you install the software, basically this is what is getting created in behind the scenes on that server, so that database can use this kind of utilities. Okay, so this is where all the utilities are. So what are the options for expdp? It's easy. You can just do expdp help equal to y, and it will give you all the possible options or parameters which you can use for this particular for using the expdp utility. So these are a huge set of options. We not really we use all these options at a time. Depending on our need, we use those options. And let's review few of the options which we have here listed. First option is something called as attach. So if you have already have a existing job running and you want to add something to that existing export job which is running, then you use this attach feature. Okay. Second one is cluster. Cluster is if you have a RAG database where you have more than one no instances. In that case, if you want the export utility to use both the use the resources from both the nodes, then you give cluster equal to yes. So basically, it kind of load balances the usage of memory and workers and everything. Right. So say if you ran a export job on a RAG database without specifying yes or no, by default it will take yes. So whatever I put in the bracket over here, it's the default option. Okay. By default it will say yes. Say you don't want to run it on both the nodes, then you can explicitly say cluster is equal to no. Okay. Next one is compression. Basically, do you want to compress that backup or not? Compress, what is the use of compressing? It will save you some space. Okay. And in this, it will ask you, we have options like, do you want to compress just the metadata? So what is a metadata? If you guys have, if you have forgotten, basically in this table you have this column names, right? First name and last name and salary. So these names of the columns identify what information we have in the table. So these name of the columns constitute the metadata. Okay, so every table will have its own metadata. There are thousands of tables in the database, thousands, more than thousands actually. So let us see how many tables, right? So this is just a blank database. Select count of star from dba underscore tables. So all these tables are just default tables. So 2117 tables are there in this database by default. So much of data has been created in there by the database during the installation, and this data is just the data required for running this database. So what you want to compress? You want to compress only the metadata, or you want to compress only the data? So metadata is the column names, data is what you have in this columns. So you want to compress the metadata, or you want to compress the data, or you want to compress both, or you don't want to compress. So it's your choice. If you don't mention anything, by default it will compress the metadata only. Okay. Then content, what all you want, what all you want to backup. So in this, by default it backs up everything in the sense metadata and data. So there is an option of backing up only data. I don't want the column names, I want only data. You can back it up. Or you say I don't want the data from the database, I just want the structure of the database, like what all tables exist and what all the column names are there. I don't care what data is there. Then you can use the metadata only. Okay. Then comes the option directory. We will see this directory. I'll show you while I'm taking the export backup. And dump file. What is that backup file name you want to give so that you can identify that correctly. So that is the dump file. Then we have some more options like for encryption. If you want to encrypt that backup which you created, right? Then that is called as a, then we have encryption related options. So you can encrypt, you can say what all you want to encrypt, all or just data or just encrypted columns only or metadata only. So you have those options. And to encrypt, do you want to use a specific algorithm. So encryption is basically, it is taking the plain data and it is kind of encapsulating it with some other data so that nobody understands what information it is. So to encapsulate that data, uh, there are different algorithms which are used in the background. By default, it will use AES 128 algorithm, but you have option to use the different algorithms also. And you also have what mode you want to encrypt. Either you can give it a password, or you can just say transparent. The default is transparent, so when it says transparent, it will use its own password internally, and you don't need to remember that password. If you give a password here, then you need to remember the password. You cannot forget the problem forget the password, because when you try to import it, you need to give the password. Estimate, basically it will give you, if you just say estimate, it will just tell you how much time this job will take. Okay. Exclude. Exclude means, say you have 10 table spaces or 10 schemas, and you want to back up the whole database leaving just one schema. Then you can use this exclude option, where you say exclude equal to the schema name. Or you can exclude the objects also, like you can exclude the table or something like that. File size, this will estimate you the sorry, file size is basically the dump file which will be created. You can set a limit on the dump file. If you have a huge database like 1 terabyte, and you ask it to back up, it is going to create almost 1 terabyte of a backup file, right? Moving this 1 terabyte backup file will take too much time if you want to move it to some other location. So what we can do is we can break that file. We can ask export to break that file for us and create say 100 GB each file. So it will create 10 files of 100 GB each. And you want to take a full database backup, or you don't want full database backup. So by default, it will not take a full database backup. So you have to say full equal to yes when you want a full database backup. And these are other options. If you like, we have exclude. We can put even include. If you want to include one specific table out of that whole schema, then you can put include. Log file would be the location of the log file where you want, sorry, the name of the log file where which you want to create for to check the logs. Uh, Network link, if you want to connect to another database, then network link. If you don't want to mention any log file, no log file. Parallel, basically how many workers you want it to create with, you want it to run export with. Okay. Par file is option. I'll come to par file later on. There is other options which is called as queries and everything. Let's not confuse ourselves with this one. Queries and everything. Okay, one important. Remap data. Remap data means I don't think so. We have remap and export. Okay, so remap means basically if so this format, right, what you see here, emp number, that means this is the schema name dot table name, right? So if you want to create a backup of this with a different name, then you can give the new schema name and the table name. So it will create the backup according to that particular values. Reuse dump files, basically if you already have created a dump file, then you can overwrite that dump file. Dump file is basically the backup file which gets created when you run the export. We'll see that when we do a practical things. Then schemas is basically what all schemas you want to back up. Status, What is the status of the job? You can give status is equal to 60, and for every 60 seconds, it will show you the status of the job. Okay. If you want to back up specific tables, then you have tables option. If you want to back up specific table spaces, you have table space option. And yeah, this is the version and compatibility. I'm skipping this transportable because that is kind of a confusing concept. I don't want to introduce now. We'll check this later. Okay. So these are the options for export. Now what we will do is we'll go ahead and do a export backup from our database. So now I am doing a export backup for schema, which is named as Dave. We created the schema, you remember, we created this create user Dave when we are looking about the uh, uh, user management. We created a table space for that one, etc. Right? So we are going to take an export backup of schema Dave. Then what we will do, we'll delete a table from schema Dave, and then we will import the table from the backup. Okay, the backup which we took here. Okay, so let me connect here. So for this export backup to work, right, we have to kind of tell it where exactly to keep the backup files. So how do we tell it where exactly to keep the backup files? We need to create a directory. Basically you are telling export that create a directory, like for example like this pdb exp as this location where you want to keep the backups location. Okay, if you don't create this directory, you will not be able to take a export or do a import. This directory is important, as we mentioned this directory name while we are doing the export. So I have already created this directory. I'll try to create once more and it will say that it already exists. So it says name is already existing by this using by existing object. So this pdb expdir exists. So how can I check? There is a view called as dba underscore directories. So I say select owner directory underscore name directory underscore path from dba underscore directories. Okay, it will list me all the directories available over here. So here we were trying to create a directory called as uh, pdb expdir. So this directory already exists and it is owned by sys user. Okay, that is why it complained that the directory already exists. So we created the directory now. Now every user needs this grants. You remember we had studied about grants, like what privileges you want to give to the user. So these two privileges are required for the user who is doing the export or import. So grant export full database. So this export full database is a grant which already exists in the database by default. I did not create the grant. Okay, grant exp full database to that user because I'm using the Dave user to take a backup. So I'm giving it to Dave, and grant import full database to Dave. So these two, right? These two things are one time setup. You will not do this every time. Okay, unless you decided to create the backups in a different location. Okay, so if you are sure that all the backups will go to one location, create a directory and you can keep using that directory for the whole life of the database. Okay, and if you know what user you are going to use for export, give this grants and you can forget about doing this again. So this two is one time setup. When you are trying this on your database, then you will have to do the one time setup. Okay. Okay, after that comes the export part. So this is the command which I have created just to save some time for export. So this is my utility exptp. Okay, after that I need to give the username slash password of the username and details of the database I am trying to connect. Okay, this is the host name of the server, this is the port number, and this is the database name which I am connecting. Okay, then comes an important option which is called as a dump file. Dump file is basically what is the backup file you want to be created. Okay, so I'll say dave.dump. Okay, then what is the log file you want to create? I'll say export.log. Okay, and directory, you created a directory here, right? So you have to mention the directory equal to pdb expdir. Okay, so these options are sure and they have to be there. Okay, after that you can give any other option if you want a status every 10 seconds. So I'll say status equal to 10, and schema, what schema you want to backup, schema equal to Dave. So before this, we will try to get a list of tables which are existing for our Dave schema. Okay, I connected PDB, right? Okay, sorry. So select table underscore name from dba underscore tables where owner equal to Dave. Okay, so here we have two tables. Okay, select count of star from owner Dave dot the table name. Now we are trying to find out the number of rows in this table. Employee table has one row. Select count of star from Dave dot companies. So this has 0 rows. Okay, so this is our data before something happened and before we took a backup. Now we go ahead and take a backup. So here we are telling take a export backup, create this dump file and this one. I think let's give a different dump file, Dave export. Okay, I'm taking this one and I'll paste here. Okay, and I hit enter. So now it will start that export utility. See here it says export, it is not, so it's a expdp. Like I told you, right, this expdp is the latest code, but it has a it is using that export utility only in the backend. It will take some time, it will validate the credentials, and this is the status what I was talking about, right? What mode we are taking a backup of schema, state it is executing right now. Current parallelism, we did not give parallel, so current parallelism is 1 by default. Are there any errors? 0. Dump file location and number of bytes which were written into that dump file. Okay, then it's also giving us the status of the worker. What is the process name? DW00. Okay, wherever if you see this DW00, DW01, 02, anything starting with DW, then in the alert log, then you know that it is the process of the export. Okay, so it is doing its work, it is taking a export, let it do, and once the export completes we will go to that location and see how the backups are created. Home Oracle backups is location which I gave, right? This is the location I gave. How did I give that location? Using this directory. Okay, the directory was created using this statement. I said create directory as this location. I will go here and see the dump files will be created. You see this? This is, I tried this before. Dave underscore export dot dmp. This is your backup file, actual backup file. Okay, and this is your log file. Okay, let's go and see if that completed. It's still processing. see here, it is where is it is exporting this table, exported dave.companies 0 kilobytes 0 rows. Okay, exporting dave.employees 6796 kilobyte and has 1 row of data. Okay, so now it says job, uh, just it says job dave export successfully completed at this time, and how much time it took, 2 minutes 3 seconds. Okay, now when we go here we can see this is the complete dump file. Now I told you we can give the file size. If I would have given let me see how much is this actual size. So this one is 384 kilobytes. Okay, the export dump. If I did not want it to be it to cross 200 kilobytes and I gave size equal to 200k, then it would have created two files. Okay, two files, one with 200 kb, the other file with 148 kb. Okay, so this is our export. And for any reason, if this says like job completed successfully or completed with warnings, then you can obviously go to the log file and check the information over there. Okay, this is my export underscore log. I do a vi and go inside. I can see the status. Okay, so basically if you see here, it took a backup of the table data, took a backup of index, it took a backup of statistics of table, took a backup of users, the grants, the roles, default roles, and some schema, and the table, comments made on the table, indexes of the table, and constraints. Okay, and these are the two objects which it backed up. All right, so that is what you have in the export log. Okay, now what we will do is we will go and drop the table. Which one? We'll drop the table companies. Drop table, owner is Dave dot companies. Okay, table dropped. Let's validate how many tables we have. We have only one table. All right, if I do a select count of star from Dave dot companies, it says table does not exist. So we have successfully dropped the table. Now we will go ahead and do the import. Again, import also has the same kind of options. IMPDP, this is the binary we'll be using. User ID / password at the rate database details. Dump file name. So this dump file name, right, it should be same as that of the export. If you don't remember, then go and check in the log file for which you took the export and use it over here. If you give a different dump file name, then it is going to use that other dump file name and do the import, and you will not even know. Okay, log file name import.log. Directory, again, where is that dump file which you are using? Give the directory and what you want to import. Okay, I want to import a table whose owner is Dave and table name is companies. Okay, so this is my import command. I'll copy it and I'll run this. So here it says imported dave.companies 0 kb 0 rows. Let it do its processing, finishing up creating everything. So the options in import also are similar. If you review this PPT, it's the same options what we have for export. You can review this when you get time. This is the procedure which I did here. All the steps are mentioned here. So that is what exactly we are doing. So here your database name should change. Okay, this is not Oracle PDB. Your database, depending on what your PDB name is, you change it. So here it says it imported successfully. Okay, so let's go and see if our table has come back. So we see components table is here, and let's try to count the rows. 0 rows as it was earlier. So that is how we do the export and import. I just showed you by dropping one table, but again, if a whole schema is deleted or whole schema is deleted, then your import command would be, instead of tables, it would be schema equal to Dave, like that. If somebody dropped the Dave schema and you want to import the whole schema, schema equal to Dave. That is how you do the import. Any questions on this?
No, no.
Again, like I said, you practice is the best way to get hold of all these things.
Mm.
Import is one of the simplest way of backup. Give it a try and practice it. If you just know these two commands, impdb user slash password, dump file name, log file name, directory, and schema, or the table you want to import. In interview, if they ask a question, how do you do an import? You can quickly say this one. What is a dump directory for export or import? It is a place where the backups will be stored. Why do we need to give a dump file? It's a basically a backup file name. Okay.
Okay.
So those are the options. Say for example, you don't want to give all this. Okay. Then what you can do is you can just give this one. Okay. You don't want to give all those, and you want to put everything in a file. So you just mention all of these options in a file like this, and you create this file in the DBA directories only. Vi par file .txt, and you just put this entries here. Okay. And while doing the import, what you do is you give this one par file equal to par file.txt, and it will take all those values from that file. This is the par file option which was there in the PPT, right? Instead of giving every option here in one line, if you have a lot of options which you want to give, you can create a par file. The name of the par file can be anything. Just make sure when you give this option par file equal to, that particular correct name is given over here. So that will take care of your par file option. Okay. So again, for this one, you don't need to shut down a database. For export, you don't need to shut down a database. For import, you don't need to shut down a database. It will go while the database is running. So this falls into a category called as a hot backup, but a logical hot backup, because we are backing up until the level of a table, which is not a physical file. It is a logical file. Table does not really exist that you go and see. It is just jumbled up in the data file, and when we try to get that data, it will get all that information and display us in the form of table. That's it. Okay. It's a virtual concept, not a direct concept. Yeah. You had some question? Mukta, are you speaking? I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. No, no, I don't have question on this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Yeah. So that is was what I wanted to cover today. Data pump. So far we have covered. Let me start the.